Hey everybody, welcome to the Kid Contractor Podcast. Welcome to the show, folks. Cool episode here today, like I hope all of ours are, but this was one that this is a kind of a thing I stumbled onto at ConX, or no, I didn't stumble onto it. I was more pulled into it. And we were hanging out with AJ and Alicia Brenzel at ConX for the day, and I think Alicia was saying, hey, there's a thing I want to go see a couple ladies speak about and a company speak about employee morale and all that kind of stuff. And so, Missy Sherber was hosting it or emceeing it or whatever you call. So I was like, whatever. And Britt and I were like, all right, cool, whatever. So we went over, sat in it, and I'm glad I did. And it was a really good talk about putting your team members, putting them first, or making sure they're exalted in the manner that they should be, as a company, and because it is. I don't want to say it's what makes or breaks a company, right? Because I used to think, I will let you talk, ladies. Believe it or not, I will. But I've got. But I used to think this was really cheesy, and the way it was done, maybe it is cheesy. But you see this corporate posters, right? And it's like the motivation cheesy corporate posters you see in some office somewhere. It was like the Gears one. It was like, we're all interconnected. Some bold face office space looking thing. And maybe that was done in a cheesy manner. But I really thought about that for a while though, and it really is that the company is a giant gearbox, right? And so like with our company as a landscape contractor, and I'm in the office mostly and bidding and all, if I don't get that part right, the field suffers. If the field's not doing their job right, I'm suffering because I'm playing catch up and apology tour to clients and all that kind of stuff. And it really is a big gearbox, right? The company. And so making sure the team is on board and all that stuff. And it was a great presentation that you ladies had. So without further digression here, we have Ry and Kayti here with the Repurposed Educator. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hey.
That might be the longest, most ridiculous intro I think I've done here, but I'm very excited to talk about this because this is in this year of our company, we just built a big facility and all that, and this is our stabilization year of this new chapter in the company, and it was really good timing to be at your event there at ConX. I guess not real quick. Take all the time you want. Either of you ladies lead off. Tell us what the Repurposed Educator is. Maybe if you want, how you ended up kind of into that, maybe unexpectedly as well, and then we'll dig in.
I'll start. Well, I grew up in the construction industry. My parents have a trucking company. They have aggregate pits. While I was growing up, they owned a ready mix plant as well. So I was living it. And then when it came to, making decisions of what to do after high school, I was part of that generation where you had to go to college, and I was not encouraged to stay in the family business. It was you need to go there. The high school diploma was equivalent to a college degree is what was preached. And I had always had a passion for working with kids and making an impact. So I went to school to be a teacher and taught in the elementary sector. And then the last few years before I transitioned out of education, I was working in curriculum and instruction. So working with a lot of educators on building curriculum for their classrooms.
And
go ahead, Ry.
Yeah, if you haven't guessed already, I am also a former educator. Aside from Kayti's experience, I didn't really have any construction industry experience. My dad was an owner operator, and I married a farmer. So like that blue collar way of life just always was part of me and who I am. But I went to school and I was a special ed teacher for a few years. And then I thought I was going to be a school counselor for a while. And about the end of that program, I kind of reevaluated everything and just kind of decided like I wasn't making the impact that I wanted to anymore in education. And I was just starting to see so many things change. And that was when Kayti, my best friend, was like, I see how much you're struggling with this. I have a position here at DW Companies. Why don't you come and just run our social media and marketing? You're a great storyteller. You have creative skills, and you're a repurposed educator, and we can be this thing. And so I started at DW Companies, and one of the first things I did was create our Repurposed Educator logo, kind of as a, playful joke. And I said, all right, this has a catchy ring to it. This could be something. And 18 months later, we're speaking on all the things that Kayti and I have implemented at DW Companies in terms of culture and business growth and recruitment and retention and all the things. And we're at ConExpo, and now we're doing all these other things with people like you, Caleb.
Well, and thanks to Missy Sherber, and maybe she is definitely I suppose a catalyst in this, and I only know of her. I only know of Repurposed Educator because of that connection through Brittany and Alicia, and then Missy, and saying we need to come see this and all that. Tell us about I guess Kayti, if you would, maybe DW Company and any backstory there that you can share.
Sure. The last 5 years, like I said, I was in curriculum. My husband had been encouraging me to come back to the construction world and support what he was doing. He said, if you put this much effort into what you're doing in education, I can tell you, like, it would go far in the construction world. And I was like, yeah. So I hummed and hawed about it, but much like Ry, like a lot of things started changing right around COVID time. And, there were just a lot of things that weren't aligning with my values in education anymore. At that same time, my husband and 4 of his key leads walked out of a company that they had been at for a very long time. And it just, the constant toxic environment, the leadership there was very top down. There was lots of yelling and that core group was sick and tired of the constant turnover and dealing with the constant turnover, and just really struggling with being able to stay there. So they all walked out the door together, and Steve started DW Companies. And at that point, I just said, if we're starting over, we're doing things a lot different. And one of the things that will be implemented is professional development. And then that just kind of grew to a whole bunch of other things, but really starting with professional development and developing your people as humans, not safety training. I mean, those things are all great and important. And we do those things, but beyond that, like, how do we communicate? How do we deal with conflict resolution? How do we all show up, and how are those differences played out in how we work together as a team? And so we really spent a lot of time digging into that to begin with. And I'm not going to lie, most of the guys weren't excited. Steve was extremely supportive, but very, very nervous about how it was going to go with the guys. So, but slowly over time, it really, really took off. And now we're really starting to see the impact. And we had no plan for this to blow up like it has with going to Connex. Missy had reached out, and some other people have reached out and said, what are you guys doing? I need to know, what curriculum is that? What is that? And
because I was posting all of our events that we were holding, our professional development days. And we're pretty active on Instagram and especially our story on Instagram. And so I'm posting all of these little snippets of what we're doing. And she must have watched one and she reached out right away. And that was kind of what started the snowball for us at ConExpo and everything afterwards.
Yeah. And so, bringing that around, it's funny, when I crashed, I really learned how to do business, and not that I figured it out and still don't have it figured out, after I wrecked my first company about 10 years in, give or take. And so it's funny, if you allow it to and you apply it, what can come out of rock bottom, let's say. And DW formed out of the ashes like that, maybe of another another situation or another company. And now as from speaking with you folks at dinner, or at least all the guys at dinner, man, it was very inspiring for me to really step up what we're doing with our employees here at Almond. And it was really really cool. Tell us about what were the first steps with boosting the buy-in for the guys? Because again, I deal with that too. I've got my team, is all pushing. We just hired I say young guy. This is how old I'm getting now. A young guy at 26, but the other, and we're a small company. We have 4 full-time guys, but the other 3 guys on the team are all about my age, 40 years old, and so we're getting old and crusty, and hard to change our ways and all that. And I know how resistant they are and can be, and I'll even speak to myself when Britt, again from higher up the chain here, even when Brittany tries to implement something, I can be resistant to it too, and I catch myself and I try to be better and good about being open. That being said, what are some of the first ways that you started breaking that into the DW company? Companies or company?
Companies.
Okay, cool. So with the DW companies, what were some of the ways that you started to break that ice, let's say, beginning to build that roll that stone uphill of employee buy-in?
So Katie had mentioned that, her husband and her own DW companies. But my husband also works for DW companies as well. So initially we had, both of them kind of understood, I say kind of lately, but kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do. And as far as the professional development piece, neither, like Katie said, neither one of them were fully in until we really started. But they knew that they, what am I trying to say? They were supportive, so they were gonna do it for us, that aside, but then we had all of these other guys on our team, and we knew that we had some really impactful, influential people on the team that if they didn't buy in, the rest of our team was absolutely not going to buy in. So we sat down with a lot of pretty much the primary 5 guys that came, and started with Steve at DW Companies. We kind of sat down and we just said, hey, we have this idea. We really need you to just give it a chance, be a good role model, be all in on this day. And we want to see where this goes, kind of fake it till you make it sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
Just do this for us. And we had Dozer Dan, Dozer Dan.
You met him at
yeah.
He's not a little guy, he's hard on the outside. He's one that you don't want to mess with. But when Dozer Dan participated, everybody was like, whoa,
interesting.
Okay.
Well, even Steve too. I mean, Steve engaged fully in our first professional development day. He's not, in the back. He's not checking emails. He's not checked out. He's fully at the table doing the discussions, the, activities that we had planned, and fully engaged. So I guess to answer your question, it was making sure that the influential people on your team that have that effect on the rest of your team, at least participated and were role models for the entire day.
Yeah, and that was a note I made here was getting the lead people and maybe even the Dozer Danzy organization, maybe even getting them on board first if you can, but getting the influential people on board. That's
after a few of our sessions, I had interviewed some of the guys, and that interview is on both of our websites, repurposededucator.com and dwcompanies.com, and it goes through, and we asked all of the guys what were your initial thoughts of professional development, and they'll tell you we thought it was going to be a crock of shit. This is nothing that we thought it was rainbows and butterflies and hugs and
trust falls,
and
all of this.
We were really
right.
about making it not that, because we came from a world of professional development that we knew those activities, we didn't want anything to do with those either. So, but we knew how important they were and how impactful that they could be on a team, and so we really catered it to our team and to what I think the construction industry.
That's awesome. There, Miss Britt walks in the door. I don't know if I can get her to join us or not. I'd like her to. We'll see. Hey, Britt, you want to join us?
Hi, Britt.
Meeting. Oh, the ladies, Kayti and Ry, say hello. So, hello, she says, in her Big Bird Missy Sherber looking coat there. Britt's got this yellow fuzzy jacket thing. It looks like something I see Missy wearing once in a while. I don't know. And I was with the Big Bird Missy shirt there.
You love the viz, the yellow.
It's all about that. And so also too, for context, tell us about the DW companies and what you folks do and what size, employee size or revenue. I don't care. However you want to quantify rather, the size of the company or whatever.
Yeah. So we do a variety of different services. We're primarily excavators. So we do commercial work. One of our main clients is Quick Trip. The Quick Trip with a K, not the Q. When Minnesota and Wisconsin, it's the Quick Trip with a K. So we do several stores for them every year. We also have a residential side where we do your typical residentials, digging basements, septics, driveways, all of those things. We have a municipal side where we support local counties and cities and townships with culverts or road reconstructions, a variety of different things. We also provide a lot of emergency services, which has been really heavy this spring. So when culverts fail or there's a fire, we go out and support the fire departments. We break apart structures so that they can put the fires out faster. So a really wide variety of services. It's never the same any day. And
you never know what piece of equipment Steve is going to buy next. And then
right.
you have another service line. It's
like a sweeper truck. Like he brought a sweeper truck the other day. I'm like, what?
Now we're getting into sweeping services.
Day,
Caleb.
Well, believe me, I understand how that can be, and it's and Britt, I sometimes drive her crazy, and she's got to rein me in sometimes. So I'm actually selling a demolition hammer that I bought 3 years ago that hasn't been used since we bought it, and it was one of those squirrel, things and like whatever. So we were doing all this demolition work, and then I bought this hammer, so we've been renting one a bunch, and bought it. Work dried up. I swear to goodness, like immediately as I bought this, that line of work like dried up. And the hammer sat for big hydraulic hammer, for an excavator.
Yep.
Sat for 3 years, finally selling it. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. So I get it.
Well, as soon as you sell it, that's when you're going to need it again.
100,000,000%. That is what is going to happen. I'd about bet the farm on it. I know it's going to be so frustrating. Whatever. I guess, but if that's what it takes to bring in work, I guess we'll play ball like that. What? So I got a whole bunch of questions here. We're going to bounce around a bunch because there's so much story here to try to get good context of what Repurposed Educator is and DW companies are.
Yeah.
And there's so much I want to ask, but in the interest of time, gosh, we're 17 minutes deep already. Tell me, okay, so we got two of those. One thing I'm really interested in, and because I get asked this a lot through our social channels and stuff, is like working with friends and how do you conflict manage or disagreement manage, whatever. Like, can you folks touch on that as far as like or maybe you're perfect and it's rainbows and butterflies and we never have a disagreement and everybody's on the same track. But how do you folks handle it? How do you advise? How do you recommend folks handle when you're working with friends or family or anything? What's your recommendations there for conflict management, resolution, disagreement?
Ry did not want to come work for me because she didn't want to ruin their friendship.
Honestly,
it's wise. I could understand
that. To come on full time just because I didn't know what to expect, and I really valued our friendship like outside of work, and I didn't want anything to come between us. But that said, like things have gone really, really well. We do, with our professional development, we do like the personality indicator kind of thing. And Kayti is very red and I'm very orange. And if you know anything about that, like we're complete opposite, really, like when it comes to personalities. And not only the work through what we've done with our professional development, like we've gotten to know each other just differently and understand each other so much better. We were good friends. Our husbands were good friends before we all worked together. Like, we go on vacations together. Like our kids are best friends. Like we literally spend so many hours together during the week. And there hasn't been nothing. Like I can tell her when she's being a jerk and she can tell me the same thing. And we just understand and get each other. Another thing is we do really good at like just separating work and friendship. Like work is work. And, when we're out together for dinner or on the weekends or in other countries together, like we're just really good at separating that. And we've kept it siloed, and so far so good.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
we have Steve and I are in here together as a couple. Ry and I, Sarah and her boyfriend work here. I mean, we have like a lot of couples, and not to mention like the whole core group that walked we're all good friends that walked out together. And I think part of it was the experience of saying we're going to do something different, we're going to do something better, and we all like live and bleed this mission to change and do things differently. And I think a lot what Ry said, we all know how we show up to life, and you can really like separate things a lot better when you're like, okay, Katie needs her task list and be able to get these things done, or she's going crazy. Where Ry,
I really need my headphones to be able to focus. And when Ry has her headphones on, like, don't talk to her through our literal hole in the wall that we have, because our offices are right next to each other. Like, we just understand each other.
And I think that's like when we all struggle. Like if we're struggling with somebody within the organization, really go back to, okay, what color are they? What do they need to be successful? How do I approach them? Because there's so many different ways that people show up and want to be appreciated, or how you approach a conversation, that just going back to those fundamentals is like, oh yeah, like that drives me crazy, but that's how they show up, and being able to separate some of those things for our entire team, it has helped immensely.
Yeah, and you were mentioning the color test things. There's Brittany has been doing a bunch of those. I'm not opposed to that stuff. That's just not a way my head is geared to just seek those kind of tests out or whatever. But we've done Enneagram, I think the color one, and there's a handful of other personality tests. And what is the color coded one? What is that one called, or what is that?
The one we use?
It's Carol Whitaker's color coding personality PCI. And you can use any out there, but it's the idea is to be consistent. Yeah. Use one and implement it. And I think what most organizations do wrong with it is they come in and they do it, and then they go, great, we know everybody's colors, and like move on. And then after that few weeks, people forget about it, and they completely, it was like, oh, that was a great experience, and it was maybe moving, but how do I then continue to build off of that? And that's where our colors never go away. That's involved in every single professional development we do. We build on it. We maybe add another layer to it, or look at it from a different lens. There's a lot of resources that we pull in and then try to connect with it, but we're always talking about our colors. And I think that's, if any tip, like any organization can, purchase a color indicator and do it, but it's not a one and done thing.
Right. You've got to manage through that, or pay attention. The personality type thing is, I didn't realize until the past probably couple years how big of a deal that is. And probably the groundwork to that was when I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the Dale Carnegie classic there. And the Enneagram thing really opened my eyes up, if you're familiar with Enneagram or whatever, but it's all the same thing. The Myers-Briggs test, all those kind of personality things. I would strongly recommend folks to look into doing some sort of personality test like that with your team. And be it a little company, you got two people, or one, and your spouse, by the way, too, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever is going on. That stuff will really help you once you understand, because the other saying there is, don't treat people how you would like to be treated. Don't treat people how you would like to be treated. Treat people how they would like to be treated, right? And once you start to learn the personality quirks and things of really like the color code thing, like you folks do. When you started running that through the company, again, was that was part of the did you have your whole team at like DW, for example, do the color test thing, or what did you do there?
Yep. That was honestly our first activity that we did. And I think it helps with the buy-in of professional development, because you automatically learn something about yourself, and there's a quick connection for individuals where sometimes some of the other things that we've done later on, I don't think would have been as successful if they hadn't learned something about who they are first and who their teammates are.
I mean, it was a really impactful first session that we had, because so many of the people probably hadn't taken a test like that since high school, or maybe not even at all. And it was really an eye-opening thing. Like, you read your summary after you've been, identified as a color now, and it's literally rambling off everything that you thought you didn't know about yourself. It was just and so like Katie said, it was just a really good connection, okay, and also a way to almost build rapport with them in a sense, because all these things that I'm reading about myself are exactly the way that I am. What are we gonna do next about that? And so then they were curious, and
a lot of them were like, can I take one home? I need to know what my significant other is. This might be helpful, kind of a thing. And a lot of them have. And I think it was just really important for them to know something about themselves, and it helps them communicate.
Yeah. And then that next step was okay, now partner up with a person that's a different color than you, and now learn about them and what makes them tick, why they are the way that they are. So it really was just a profound experience that we had with the team. And
now we can joke about it, when I'm wanting structure, Ry's like, oh, your red's coming out,
right.
I can joke about it, but that's truly what I need, and we talk about colors all the time. If you come to our office, you can ask any single person. They know what their color is and something about their color. And we have visual aids up all around the facility, in our box trucks, wherever that our guys are. And I'm not saying that they stop and they read it word for word every day, but that visual of I'm not a red, or I'm not a green, and I'm working with greens today, and I may be struggling with that person. Just a reminder, I think, to stop and think okay, they don't show up the same way as me, so I might have to change my approach a little bit.
Well, all that being said, tell us about Repurposed Educator and what you do, and it's a fairly new inception, I guess, right? The Repurposed Educator. So tell us about Repurposed Educator, what you do, how that initially really was the groundwork, like you said, into the DW companies, and that's blossoming out from there. What's the drive right now, or what is the goal, and how do you folks help?
So when we decided that Repurposed Educator was going to become this official thing, and then we were at ConExpo, we had to have we had to have a format, of philosophy.
What are we actually doing?
What are we doing? So Katie and I sat down one weekend, and we just kind of started writing down all the things that we do at DW companies, as far as, creating our brand, the community stuff that we do, the professional development, all these things. We just started writing lists down, and 4 themes emerged. And those 4 themes are now our 4 pillars in the Repurposed Educator. We call it Culture Building 101, and we list the 4 pillars, which are the brand establishment, team building, professional development, and community impact. So everything that we do daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, by the second, literally, is something to do within these 4 pillars. And so I guess what we're going to do next, and what we want to do next with Repurposed Educator, is to help other companies around those 4 pillars, to help them figure out how to do their own professional development, how to create their own brand, how to put on team building events that are really impactful and purposeful. And then lastly, and most importantly for us, is how to impact our community, because our community is where our business comes from, where our workforce is coming from, and all of those things. So do you want to talk about what's coming up?
Yeah. So when we went to ConExpo, we were I'm not really sure. First, we were we need to have a format for people to receive this information. And then we decided, no, we're just going to go and we're going to listen. Like, what do people want out of us? Because we're all about sharing what we're doing and making an impact. I think that's where like our educator background comes from. We want to share what we're doing. And so we just listen to a lot of people and they're like, well, we want to like take a class, or we want to, attend something, or maybe some people want coaching. So those are the types of things that we took away after our presentation, after talking to a lot of people. And a lot of the interest from being at ConExpo was certainly more national and not just in our backyard. So, we've been looking into creating a virtual academy. We have actually just took on another educator that has just started this week, actually. And she's going to be help supporting the platform of building what that might look like for our virtual academy. But we are wanting to roll out some sort of virtual academy with some sort of coaching and accountability, cohort type setup. And we're always looking for feedback from people that are interested. How do you want to receive it? We certainly on a local level would be happy to do some presenting or some workshop type styles, but we both have young kiddos at home like you guys, and I don't want to be a dog and pony show on the road either. So I would rather make really truly impactful impressions on companies on a smaller scale than just going on a dog and pony show.
Yeah, that actually dovetails well into my next question. With as far as I understand, like the growth of DW companies was really rapid. And then the same thing, so far as I'm understanding, like Repurposed Educator, again, same thing, maybe not same scale, I don't know, but like, again, the hockey stick growth all of a sudden. Tell me about managing growth. And aside from like wanting to pull your hair out and go crazy, like how do we manage that, right? Like what advice do you have for managing explosive growth, really?
Yeah. Well, we started with the 5 individuals that walked out of that company, Steve and the 4 guys, and we were going to stay this small little under 10 people organization and just do, some smaller scale stuff, maybe do a quick trip or 2, but we really had no intention. And just between the work that we did around culture and community impact, the work just kept coming in, and so we really just tried to meet the needs of our community and the demands that were coming in. And yeah, there was a lot of midnight sessions still at the office for Steve and I, but I think a big change for him in comparison to how he managed the other company was to really provide a lot more support in the office and really invest on the office side. I think there's a stereotype that, you just need 1 or 2 office people and they can handle everything. But really looking at it differently, I think, than most organizations of our size. I mean, we have, how many do we have now in the office? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 people in the office, and probably 20 people on the field side. Now that feels different than most companies, but handling it in a way that somebody is always answering the phone. There's somebody that's always following up on a quote within a day, maybe 2 days. All of that type of really customer oriented service on this side has really grown business super fast. And I think a lot of and
controlled growth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's only been based on what people are asking and wanting and needing within our community. But when people call, many of our competitors, might not be somebody in the office that day or at all. And then, it's following up with them at 10 o'clock at night and, just really trying to show them that you're a professional organization and to provide the customer service that they would get next door at Menards or, whatever, that it's quick. Our society wants that quick fix. So many times when we answer the phone, people are like, oh, there's somebody there. Oh, you guys answer your phone? That has, kind of fueled us more to say absolutely. And just to have a quote back to them within a couple of days, somebody that goes out and looks at the site that day or the next day means so much. They don't even want to mess with calling somebody else because boom, you were there and they just want the project over and done.
Yeah. Yeah, answering the phone is a big deal. And I think it's going to get more and more important as the economy shifts a little bit. And now again, in the trades, I believe like if you're willing to work, there is going to be work for you like for a good while, I do believe. Because there's so few people willing to actually work physically in that instance, let's say. So the companies that are really going to win are the ones that really win are exactly what you're saying, the communication, to have the communication game down. And that's such a big deal. How hard is it to apply those principles of growth to the repurposed educator when, you get these crazy requests from, and I say crazy, but I mean like, wow, Missy Sherber, they want us to speak at Connex, like, holy cow. And, all the other opportunities. I'm guessing some of controlled growth is saying no. So how hard is that? Which, thank you for not saying no to the Kid Contractor podcast. I don't know how you squeeze that in a day, but I do appreciate it. Like, how do we determine what a good opportunity is? Or, is that part of like what you folks would say, like controlled growth is saying no?
Yeah, I mean, on the DW side, we certainly look for people that value our value that we bring to the table. We don't want to be the person that shows up as the cheapest bid all of the time. We want them to see value that we give back to the community. We provide a quality job, a career for our employees, that they're getting more than just the cheapest. We don't want to be the Walmart dirt guy. We want to provide value. And I think that's for Repurposed Educator too. We don't want, our goal isn't to go and hit 100 thousands of companies within a year. We'd rather just start out with people that are really committed to the same values that we are and really want to make that change in their organization. And, we look for like-minded employees. We look for like-minded customers. And I think that helps with your controlled growth. If there's definitely jobs and things that we say no to because it doesn't align with who we are.
Yeah. And going off of that a little bit, like, I think people were kind of maybe shocked that like after ConExpo, and like, I think even Brittany maybe asked me at dinner, like, okay, well, what's next for RE? And I think I kind of surprised her when at that time, I just said, I don't know. Like, we didn't have a plan. We thought originally, like Katie had touched on a little bit earlier, like we had to go to ConExpo and everything was just like laid out. And we had this like perfect plan to get from A to B. And then all of a sudden we were like, no, we have to slow down. Going back to like the controlled growth, like we just have to kind of let this become what people want it to become. And like aligning with, DW is becoming what our community wants it to become. And, we're providing services that are benefiting our community, just like we're going to provide services and resources that are going to benefit the construction industry.
Yeah, tailoring it to the consumer, right? To the end consumer, right? The end customer. That's a great way to put it, right? Like with DW or RE, as you're calling it, Repurposed Educator. Like we want to build it to what the your customers are looking for. I like that. That is the idea of a model business, right? It's tailored to the consumer, what the consumer is looking for, right? That's awesome. That's good stuff. Holy cow, pushing 40 minutes now, which is what I told you I wouldn't try to take much more of your time than that.
We'll talk to you however long as you want. This is like our passion, and this is like our passion project within DW. I mean, we both have roles within DW. Like, she has social media. I run all of the books for the most part. But then this is allowing us some way for us to like utilize our education impact, and Steve's been super supportive with that. And we've added a lot of like assistant type roles within the organization to allow that flexibility for us to do this.
Awesome. So within I think you said it's like a 4-pillar concept of, the path to creating better. What would you say, like company morale, or what would you say like that creates then, like better culture ultimately, or what?
Culture.
Yeah. Interesting. And company culture, how long would you say, maybe it is determined by the organization from 5 people to, let's say, 200. what do you think the turnaround time is to, I don't know if you would say like turn the company culture on its head, 180 degrees, but like that's something that can take, I'm guessing, a serious amount of time, right? We're not talking like, hey, we had one meeting and everybody knows their colors and things are great, within 2 weeks. Like the culture shift of a company can take weeks, months, even years. Like what would you say what would you say about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going back to just that buy-in and like people understanding the reason why you are so invested in creating a culture, like hiring people with the same values and who are in alignment with the reasons why you want to change, like all of that goes with establishing that and changing that. And Katie can talk a little bit about even like our working with other contractors who are in alignment. Like it's all encircled in culture. Like there's so many little things daily that you can do that will affect like your company culture so drastically, like from the people you work with, from the people you hire, from the jobs you work on, like so many things.
Yeah. And we don't tolerate those people within our organizations that don't walk our talk, and that goes from people that we, GCs that we work under. We have walked away from GCs. We walked away from millions of dollars of work with a GC because their values didn't align with our values. And when our guys are having to literally draw straws on who's going to go on that job site because they can't stand working for that GC and how they treat them, and just that they have that whole, like, they want to show that they're in charge and we're below them. Like if we're not partnering on projects, no, thank you. We will walk away. We're going to find better work. And when you find better, you find better work, you find people that align with those, it's just so much easier to come to work every day when everybody's on that same page, and it ripples literally into everything. But I think what a lot of people struggle with in our industry is saying, I'm going to walk away from this account, even though they're a good paying account, because they don't treat my people well. Like that's hard to swallow. And that's what keeps that toxic cycle keep happening, because, it's got to stand up and say, no, not enough's enough. And same goes for, people not wanting to get rid of people in an organization. Well, they're a really good worker, but if they're cancer in your organization, it doesn't matter how good, because now they're ruining how many other employees' productivity. So it's like really being diligent about saying we're gonna walk the talk, and that's not easy, especially when they're, a lot of people struggle with finding employees to fill their rosters. But some of the other diligent work that we do, we don't have any issues finding people. In fact, we have a waiting list of people that are just dying to get in the door. How can I work for you? I want to be there. Ry runs the social media. I mean, you can talk about that.
All the time people are messaging us like, how do I work for a company like you? Like, oh gosh, I really wish you had a division that was closer to my home. Like, just it's been nuts. And kind of going back to like what we talked about earlier about, finding those influencers in your company. Like I talk about Dozer Dan, like it wasn't that long ago that Dozer Dan would not send me a photo or a video of the job site because he didn't believe in the impact that it had. And like now Dozer Dan is like doing lives from Vegas and like job site, like calling out other businesses on Instagram to get like them to respond. And like, and as soon as he started doing that, everyone thought it was a great idea, and everyone is doing it, and everyone is providing to the daily banter and the daily entertainment that like we have grown to know and love, and that our community has grown to know and love. If we aren't posting something for a day, people are like, where are you? What's happening? Like, where is everything okay? Like they want to know. And just like Katie said, there's so much that it is involved in.
Yeah. And I would also say that like, I know that our industry is really big on Instagram, and that more national following is on Instagram. And while your national followers are really cool and great, but you need to figure out where your community lives on for social. And for us, it's Facebook. Our community is a Facebook community. And so we're very, very purposeful of putting content there. And that's where we get the most interaction from our own community. And we're very active on Instagram and things as well. But it's really figuring out who is or what social they really like to participate in, and really, really hit that hard. Because you want to create like a local fan group, literally like make them local fans of your organization. And that's been super fun to see. Like you have like these cheerleaders out there for you that may not even ever have a need for your services, but they love following your page.
Yeah, we recently just had a message from a lady in the community that follows us, and she's like, I have yet to need your service. I have yet to really have any reason to follow you, but yet you are my favorite account to follow. And the minute I do need a service, you're going to be the one that does it. Like, that is so impactful. Like, that just speaks volumes to what we are.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I want to go back to something here, because most folks don't understand even what this is that you mentioned. And that is a waiting list to work at your company. I know of a few, but in general, I would just say no one has that, right? And that is something worth noting. I mean, you could, well, I would say you could create a course or a course in the academy or whatever you end up doing, like solely on that. But I imagine that's really still part of. No, I don't imagine. I know it's all part of the whole thing that's orbiting around that, of like the whole company organization, the whole culture, all these pieces do all these little, again, that whole daggone gearbox I was talking about. But like, talk to us again about waiting lists, because and again, I know the answer. I'm saying, like, but tell folks, how do you? This is it's so obvious to me, but it's like the whole company, the whole organization has got to have culture that people want to be at, right? That's exactly how you build a waiting list, right?
Yeah.
Can you make more sense than I'm able to articulate?
Yeah, I actually get kind of triggered when people are like, no, I can't find anybody that wants to work. And my questions right away are, when's the last time you've been in a school and did a career conversation, or participated in a career fair, or participated in a career panel? Like, that's usually one of my first questions. And it's usually, well, I don't have time for that, but you have time to look for people, you know? So the other thing is, like, what have you done to impact your local community? Have you been present do you have a booth at the fair? Do you bring equipment up to the fair? When there's touch a truck events, are you there? Are you at different, I would say, like town days or city days or whatever the case is? Do you have a presence at any of them, so people know who you are and that you're about? And like, how are you exciting that next generation? When we go, we have a custom made attachment that's a sandbox, and it attaches to our loader, and we bring it, and it's a huge sandbox, and we have toys, and we have, there's a big buzz that we create at every event. And every event we are at.
Literally, our booth at the Iceni County Fair is like directly across from the Midway. And like, our sandbox is packed with kids playing with our dump trucks, like across from the Ferris wheel and across from the carousel. And like, people want to be, it's crazy.
But it's like, how are you building excitement about your brand?
At the Touch a Truck event, we made little vests, like construction vests. And I mean, maybe that is part of the teacher in us too, like catering to these like little bodies and future, tradespeople. But it's exposing our brand and creating like events and activities around our brand, especially targeting our community.
And it's like, we're involved in, I don't know, six probably different districts in our surrounding area. Like, we're at them all. And not only do Ry and I go, but we bring field people. Yep, they get paid to come and talk to the kids about stuff. We get invited to business classes, wanting us to talk about how to be an entrepreneur. And what we talk about is culture. We're like, all these other people that are going to come in and talk about being an entrepreneur, they're going to give you great advice on finance and all of these other things. But what most people aren't going to tell you about is how to build a culture. And so that's what usually we go in and talk to them about, is how important that is.
Yeah. And the other end of that too, I would say, is that all has got to start with the whole conversation, I believe, which again, it comes back to the culture of like, you have got to, when you hear, I hate hearing, I can't get nobody to work. Nobody wants to work anyway. I don't buy that. I do not buy that. And I think what you have to do, I believe, is sitting at the edge of your bed one morning, or whenever you're going to be the most honest with yourself on a mountaintop, by, whenever you're going to, the only person I lie to is myself. Right. And I do it a lot, but like, you have to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, especially if you're the person saying that crap, is would you want to work for you at your top position you offer and the bottom position you offer? And if the answer is no to either, we got to work on some stuff, right? Like it is, you've got to want to work for you. You would have to stand back and say, if I had, as the owners or managers, top level people, would I want to come into this company at, whatever age range would, for entry level positions or whatever? And if the answer is no, how do you make that a yes? Like, yeah, hell yeah, out of college, I would love, yeah, this would be a good opportunity. Or yeah, I'd like to end up a manager here, or you co-owner, whatever, right? Like that's the conversation you have to be honest with yourself. Because most of the guys that I hear that say, I can't get nobody to work, are slave driving, crazy people, and they're not fun to work with, and they don't compensate well, and the culture is terrible, and they don't even mean it to be. They just are that unaware. And so it's a huge part of it is self-awareness, right? Which again, that all the Myers-Briggs and the Carol Whitaker test and all that stuff is a huge deal. Mm-hmm. I just was passed a note. Breaking. I forgot I have to take my daughter to the dentist here in just a few minutes.
Wow.
So anyways, so where can folks find Repurposed Educator? How do they reach out to you and all that stuff? And also DW companies, because I think following DW companies is a great way to see that you folks are putting your money where your mouth is and walking the talk, as you're saying, and then how they connect with Repurposed Educator to maybe start that conversation of the 4 pillars there.
Yep. So www.therepurposeeducator.com. You can check out more information on our website, and also sign up to get notified when our Culture Academy is up and ready
Cool.
to launch, as well as more information about our culture pillars.
And there's a free downloadable like culture pillar thing. We encourage people to write down as many different things that you do in each of your pillars and see which pillars maybe you need a little more attention.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
Cool.
also,
no rush, by the way. You're speaking faster. There's no rush. We're still good. I've got like 10 minutes, so I'm good. But so we're okay. Sorry, I apologize. Put the false rush on there.
You're good. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Both of us are on LinkedIn, as well as Repurposed Educator. And then DW companies, all of the above. www.dwcompanies.com is our website. And then we're also on TikTok and YouTube.
Oh man, all over it. So with that being said, maybe last question here, and then on top of anything else you want to elaborate on or not, but like balance and how you probably said it and it just went in one ear and out the other, but like how do you balance now a whole nother organization, Repurposed Educator, and DW? Because that's something I struggle with Almond, Kid Contractor Podcast, we do Together in the Trades, the Hardscape Academy, I'm probably forgetting something else, I don't know, and then just all our social stuff too. Like how do you balance? How do you balance, or what advice do you have for balance in life, or trying to balance all that so everything gets the attention it needs or whatever?
People and delegating.
Yeah, and I mean that's been really hard for me. Just because I can't, like, I always say, like, Ry, if you make 6 posts this week and instead of 8 posts, like, it's not gonna, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not going to make or break the company. But I can't choose not to pay bills or to send bills out. So like, I struggle with that a little bit more. And I've had to learn to just say, like, Ry, this is on you. Like, you're going to have to take care of this because I have my roles. And now we've gotten to the point where we're like, we brought on Erica and she's going to support this. And in about a month, we have a bookkeeper starting and I get fully released of that kind of stuff. And then I can oversee the office and oversee all of those pieces. We didn't have that luxury when we started. Like Steve and I didn't take a paycheck. Like, we were working till midnight every night. Like, we were lucky to have family that would take the boys. Like, it didn't start out that way.
Right.
And that doesn't just happen overnight. But I think acknowledging the fact that your time is valuable. I struggle with that as an educator just because you're on a salary and like you just work as many hours as you can to get the job done. And Steve's much better at that, as saying like, your time is valuable. We need to find somebody to help support you so that you can do, even better things within the organization. And that's hard. That's hard for me because I'm frugal.
And it is that is one of the toughest. That is probably one of the toughest things of leadership is delegating, right, and turning those tasks over. And that's a conversation I actually want to have with one of my lead guys. I want to encourage him or remind him that my job over this whole aspect of the company is to make their jobs as easy as I can. Now that we've added this extra person, my foreman, my right hand man, his job on site is to make his crew's job as easy as possible. And he was off of the loader today, down shoveling with the crew and not moving the loader along with him. Like, dude, no, you need to be on that loader and leading and guiding this whole crazy orchestra here. He's like, well, everybody's working harder than me. That's you keeping that loader caught up with them and directing stuff is what's making everybody's day easier instead of you down shoveling. And now we got to carry crap farther than we should. If somebody's just in the skid steer, or delegate that to someone, I don't care. You keep shoveling. So I'm going to have that conversation with him today because I saw a couple things and his heart's in the right place. He wants to be down struggling with the guys, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody's suffering equally, and it doesn't have to be that way. We can actually lighten the load if he takes more of the leadership position. So I get where he's coming from. He thinks, he doesn't want to be the guy sitting in the skid steer while everybody else is shoveling, but he's actually is making everybody's jobs easier. You know what I mean? So that's a tough thing to do, and especially your heart's in the right place, but you actually really got to look at it from a different metric or whatever. So I'll leave it to you for any closing thoughts. No rush, still we're good, but Kayti and Ry there, like the closing thoughts or any parting words, anything you'd like to leave with us here.
I don't think so. We really covered a lot, and I just encourage people to reach out. We're really good about responding. We always tell people that, while we want Repurposed Educators to be like a successful thing, we're really about making impact. Like, we don't want to work with assholes on the job site. So we're always open to share things that we're doing. And by following our social media, you'll get a lot of ideas of how we execute that. We share a lot.
And okay, so all those channels, it's all Repurposed Educator and DW Companies, correct?
You got it. Yep.
Ladies, this was awesome.
This was so fun. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Jam-packed hour. I see the next thing you got to start a podcast now. They're like belly buttons. Everybody's got one, so go ahead and start a podcast. I know, right? Oh, Lord. Everybody's got one, so go ahead and start a podcast too. But
we'd rather just be guests on podcasts right now.
And that's your wise, because it's we do 3 a week, so it is madness trying to get three out a week. If you do want to start easy and then ramp it up. But anyways, I'm crazy, so here we are. Kayti and Ry, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. A lot of great stuff here for the folks listening in here. Check them out. The Repurposed Educator, DW Companies up there in now Minnesota, correct? What's the weather? It looks snowy out the window out back there, is it?
It's raining and blowing super hard. Like, I was worried like it was gonna affect the sound.
So here's the thing. Last week it was 82 degrees.
Friday.
Over the weekend, we got 6 inches of snow.
Oh my gosh.
And now it's been 40 and rain. So literally there were like jokes on the internet that Minnesota is trying to fit all of her seasons into 1 week.
Get sunburnt and frostbite in 1 week.
Yeah, that is, everybody says, well, you don't like the weather, you don't like the weather stay 30 minutes or a day and it'll change, right? Well, that is a full-blown thing. An old farmer I know, the late Herb Walters here, local in Carroll, Ohio, he's now passed, but he said the 3 seasons were frozen, dust, and mud, and that was all he went by. It was either frozen, dust, or mud, and that was it. So Ladies, again, thanks so much for your time. Folks, from the Kid Contractor podcast, Company Cam Studios here. There's so many good takeaways. I got literally, just like when you spoke at Connex, like I had so many notes and stuff in my head of like, and the one thing was too, and the thing I came away with, gosh, you gotta get off the phone here. Okay, but the one thing I did, I'm pointing like an old man here. One thing I did, one of many things, but one thing that really stuck with me, and you just reminded me, was like a thing I wanted to do with my guys was setting up a fund in the company for each guy of like, hey, what's a charity or like your kid's ball team or something that you want to contribute to that would be, a check from Amen, but through you to whatever organization you're and again, the whole buy-in thing, I thought that was really cool. And so folks, another last thing here, like so we're a little company, we're a one man or two man mow and blow, mow, blow and go team, or we're a hardscape construction company, or DW with 30 people or 400 or whatever's going on. How do we do this? So we take a budget. We figure out, okay, just this first year, we're going to spend $2,000, right? In just community outreach, whatever it is. And we put that in our budget. If you use LMN software, plug for them real quick. They're a sponsor here. And we put that into our overhead for the year. And that $2,000, just throwing numbers out there for a small company, or $20,000, whatever it is, or $100,000, that's just built into overhead. And that's recovered on each job, each week, each day, each month, each year. And that's how we start to build that budget up to pay for all this stuff that makes our employees happier, makes us more profitable, productive, and better the community. Man, it's the total package. It's awesome. Okay, Kayti and Ry, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're out of here for real this time, folks.
What
was that?
Have fun at the dentist.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I got to get my daughter there. So here we go. Folks, from, again, Kid Contract Podcast, come to Cam Studios, Repurposed Educator, and DW Companies. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one, folks. See ya.